The guide really can be seen as a handy tool that's available to folks if you're looking for language alternatives. So it's not to be seen as hard and fast, swap these words out for these words. And the thing to remember is that context is very important. I'm proud to say that Healthline Media has always had a really strong baseline in our editorial teams for empathy. And so it's really just building upon this. We noticed that medical journals and scientific sources aren't always the best source for the most empathetic language out there. They're really good for medical accuracy, but sometimes they're not the best to look for what language to be using to be describing communities or to be framing and phrasing things in a way that don't perpetuate bias. It's not something that should sit outside of other work. It's something that should be used to build trust, to build engagement, and not just that, but it can be a tool to build processes that also lead to more equitable outcomes when we're thinking about Healthline, our content and what's in it, what we're writing about, and building this into our processes and just how we operate. I mean, it makes me feel good. It makes me feel like what I'm doing here is worthwhile and that it's really important. And I also just really enjoy seeing the work that other folks are doing and having the chance to talk to people about DEI, about this work, about why it's important, and finding that community at RV has been really, it's been really rewarding and has made me feel a little bit more connected to RV as well.
Building Credit is a cross-functional group within financial services committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. So we have two goals. Our first is to foster a sense of belonging and engagement for everyone within our FinServ vertical. And our second is to develop partnerships and create change within our community. So partnering with mission-driven organizations committed to addressing racial inequities and addressing the racial wealth gap.
Last year, we were able to bring in Professor Mirza Baradaran, who's a professor at UC Irvine Law School, to talk about the history of racial injustice in the banking industry. She came in for a Red Talk. She and Rick had an incredible conversation, and afterwards we had a whole vertical conversation as financial services about our role in erasing that inequity and being the change we want to see in the world. And it was just a really powerful moment for our vertical and our team as a whole to see that kind of conversation being welcomed at RV. I think one of the most impactful changes that we've seen is in a nonprofit that we're working with, NACA, Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America. A group of designers here at RV have volunteered their time to help them kind of redesign their site and reimagine their digital presence. And this group is hugely impactful for increasing access to home ownership from historically marginalized groups. And there's real change that we're driving within the NACA organization and their ability to achieve their mission through the work of the designers who have volunteered their time for this effort.
We created a course for inclusive photography at Red Ventures. And what that means is every touch point of photography. And there's my dog. So what it is it is a course to educate people how to best curate photography that is the most inclusive, how to take better photos for inclusivity and why that's important. And also when choosing partner photos or working with sources, how to work with user-generated content to make sure that it's as inclusive as possible in the photography we use on our sites. We are hoping that the impact means that we'll have stronger photography that is more inclusive, more comprehensive, and doesn't lead into any kind of bias or negative social stereotypes of different groups. It's now going to be part of the onboarding process for anyone that uses photography as part of their job. So creatives, editorial, we're also making the course available to anyone who might be interested in it, even if it's not part of their daily job. So if you're taking photos, if you're choosing photos, if you're curating photos, if you're getting photos from partners, that we are being as inclusive as we can. Red Ventures' core mission is to help people make decisions in various, touch points in their lives. So when they're coming to our sites, we want to make sure they're represented in our photos, in our illustrations, and we want to make sure that we're as inclusive as possible with the photos we choose.